Hey guys, so this one is very personal. Why is it personal? Well, guys, in a former life, before all this Jewish stuff, as my friend Frank likes to call it, early 2000s, I worked on Wall Street as a trader and moonlit as a DJ of what at that time was considered underground dance and or house music. And primarily the scene was in, or at least here, it was in Manhattan. And, we were playing vinyl on turntables, and folks, that was my life. That was my life for about, I want to say at least 10 years, if not more. From the year 1999 until 2010, until I moved to Israel. And even in Israel I played a few gigs, but mostly in New York. So, my friends, I saw a video from this girl, a Nova survivor. Her name is Natalie, and she was talking about how, and Natalie, I guess, glad to see you, that you survived, Baruch Hashem, Shema Tova, Umetuka, Zat Hashem, all the hostages should come back. Obviously, you were not a hostage, you were a survivor of the Nova Festival. So, Natalie was talking about how, what's up, dance music, the rave scene was supposed to be about Plur. What is Plur? There used to be a festival called Plur in I think, all over the place, really, in the city, other places. Peace, love, unity, and respect. It didn't matter who you were, what your background was, that's what it's about. And she's saying, I don't understand why would these party organizers, these organizations, these promoters, these places, channels like Boiler Room on YouTube boycott Israelis, right? Israeli producers, Israeli DJs. Boiler Room took away any gigs that were played in Israel, any of their DJs gigs where the location was Israel, right? So, I just want to tell you, Natalie, going back to my days in the DJ scene in New York in the early 2000s, Natalie, this is absolutely nothing new. And at that time, there were, obviously this is the beginning of kind of days of the internet, there were message boards where people would communicate, about parties, about new production, humor, just people having conversations. There was, in the New York scene, there were three message boards. There was one main one called Club Planet, right, for like a while. And then they came out with one called Naughty Booth, like a DJ booth. And then the same people, for whatever reason, it closed down, and then the same people opened up another message board called Rhythmism. Folks, I was on this message boards, pretty much the entire time I was a DJ, the entire time I was a clubber and, wannabe producer, very much in the scene. So every once in a while we'd have conversations / debates about Israel, about the Middle East, about politics. Folks, I remember distinctly there was a bunch of us who were, either Russian-speaking Jews, American Jews, and or Israelis, right? Versus, and then some non-Jewish conservatives, versus pretty much everybody else. So we were in the minority, and the majority of the scene was either literal Islamists or, just, they like to call themselves brown guys, right? And their lefty little sniveling little friends. Folks, I have to tell you, all the stuff that you're hearing today on the internet from groypers, from, both groypers and Islamists, right? And leftists and woke, what today is called woke. Folks, this is something that I heard day in and day out from the years 2000, and especially when the Iraq War started in 2003, pretty much until that these boards closed. I think it was like 2008 or 2009. Every single solitary day, every single day. You won't believe the things that people said. Whatever you're hearing today, but they were saying them And folks, these people were, these types were the margins, were the minority in the Democratic Party, minority in the left-wing side of the political spectrum, right? They didn't represent the mainstream. Folks, today, especially since Obama was elected, they were mainstreamed. They were made to be the mainstream of the Democratic Party, of the left-wing side. Folks, at that time, DJs, producers, Israeli ones, were not necessarily boycotted. Were not, it wasn't invoked to like single anybody out because they're a Jew, because they're Israeli. It just wasn't a thing because, you're talking about New York, you're talking about Los Angeles, you're talking about even Chicago. Like, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing. Like, people separated, even like when you had this whole thing on the message board, people would get into like these heated arguments, and then they'd see you in person. Oh, hey, what's up, man? Ta 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 ta. It was like this kind of fake thing, little front they would put on. Because, folks, ultimately they knew, right, that a big part of the scene was Israeli producers. Israeli producers, just sound like people who are Jewish, right? They're not gonna like cut out half the DJ producers out of the scene, right? It's just not gonna happen. Especially since the promoters, a lot of Jews, a lot of Israelis, club owners, what have you, right? Even though most of the club owners were not Jewish in New York at that time. So it wasn't a thing. But, folks, this kind of talk was very, very prevalent. So now, back to Natalie's question. She doesn't understand. Not only is it nothing new, guys, you got to understand. And she's saying, how could these people forget about Nova, forget about Jews, forget about Israelis, ostracize Israelis, boycott Israelis? Folks, they got it into their heads, these kids who are now the new generation, right, in their 20s, because back then I was in my 20s, now I'm in my 40s, right? They got it into their heads that Israelis are the new Nazis, right? So any person, just like, the Nazis at that time, were dancing and having their little parties with their wives and whatever, girlfriends outside the camps. In their heads, the Israelis that were at the Nova Festival are the Nazis dancing outside this so-called, open-air prison that has luxury hotels, amusement parks, shawarma places, restaurants, luxury cars, and this is before the war. Now they still have them, but more so before the war. Folks, they've convinced themselves that this is who we are. If that's who we are in their heads, right? We get what's coming to us. We don't deserve to be treated as, like any other person that's part of like the, what's called rave community or raver community, dance music, EDM, etc., etc. That's as simple as that, folks. In their heads, we get what's coming to us. And yeah, it's funny, like, she mentioned that, there's a channel called Boiler Room. Boiler Room is a channel, if you guys go on YouTube, they have different locations where, DJs spin, and then, they film the DJ spinning, and then there's a crowd behind them, and whatever it is. Different places, right? Europe, places in Europe, places in the States, Israel, Middle East, Australia, everywhere. Asia. So they removed every single gig that was in Israel, right? What they don't understand, they might as well remove every gig on their channel, because chances are, if a DJ is playing something, doesn't matter who it is and where it is, it was probably produced by people such as, I'm just going to name some producers, Guy J, Roy Rosenfeld, Eli Nissan, Moshik. This is just 4 off the top of my head, guys. Either an original production or a remix. You might as well just take down the whole damn channel. Folks. So this is nothing new, guys. This is nothing new. All this Groyper stuff. By the way, the lefties were saying stuff that Groypers today say. All this stuff about, oh yeah, you guys are from Poland. You're not even, folks, the first time I heard Khazarian Empire was on these message boards. It was actually an Armenian guy, not even a Muslim, Armenian guy, who I guess, I don't know, didn't like Jews. He started mentioning this whole Khazarian Empire stuff. He mentioned all the Talmud stuff. Folks, I'm an old fogey at this. I've been dealing with this stuff for like over probably 25 years at this point. 25 years, folks. Like, so when I first heard all this stuff coming out, and all, you have these guys who are doing a great job arguing with these schmucks, right? Online, right? Tal Oran, all these other people. There's another guy, I forget his name. Folks, I mean, like, this is old stuff on the internet. Really old.